Thank you very much, and the pleasure is mine to be in front of such a distinguished audience this morning. I will try to do two things. I will try to present a brief overview of what I call the Delta model, which is a framework for strategy that I have been developing in the last 10 years or so while at MIT. And then I will have the odyssey of attempting to reflect on how you apply this model into a university research hospital. So I'm going to get into hot waters there. Interrupt me at any time, please, if you want some clarifications or whatever. Delta, as you know, is a Greek letter that stands for transformation and change. And I label it the model that way because I think that that's the only thing that you could say which passes as a common denominator to every managerial situation. Nothing is static. You have to continuously adapt and change. And therefore, to find a way also to help you in pursuing this possibility of changing is very vital, I think. And for some reason, the existing models that were available in the literature used by academics and executives around, I think that they were not providing, at least to me, that capacity. And let me just briefly tell you why I thought a new model for thinking about strategy was needed. Incidentally, strategy is an over-encompassing field. It deals with understanding your organization, establishes its purpose, determined in a consensual way, with an energized feeling, through a proper dialogue, what are we going to do? What is the strategic agenda? How we are going to be, how we're going to attain excellence in what we do. That is strategy, major issue. I didn't like the conventional way of thinking about strategy. If you have been studying strategy or have been concerned about it, most likely you say that the first statement there, that the essence of strategy is to achieve sustainable competitive advantage. Does it sound to you as something that you have heard before? Very dangerous way of thinking that way. Why is it? Can you imagine first, you put the competitor as the driving force. So the competitor becomes your benchmark. Can you imagine if for me, before doing, say, I've done the strategy for my wonderful MIT organization and various departments. Can you imagine if the first thing that I would say is, I want to learn what Stanford is doing, what Berkeley is doing, what Harvard is doing. That's the wrong way of starting, absolutely wrong. Why? For the following reason. First, it anchors you in the past. What have you done, and how what you have done relates to what others are doing. No. Very often, I want to establish a discontinuity between the past and the future. It's change. I don't want to get anchored, in what I've been doing. Incidentally, one of the most common tools in strategy is a stupidity that is called SWOT analysis. Have you ever engaged in these silly things? SWOT meaning strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So they start the process asking you, tell me your strengths and weaknesses. What for? I don't know. Tell me your strengths and weaknesses. So what do you say? What do you do then? Is strengths in what am I doing now? And therefore reinforce the strengths, and weaknesses to correct what I'm doing now. So we are going to get deeper and deeper into that hole. Sometimes you have to rechange, reposition. Make the past obsolete, create something novel. How many times when I do this thing for real, I ask the executives, how many of you think that the status quo is the answer? I would ask you that question. How many of you think that running your department is just the same thing, with some minor tweaking, some minor readjustments? But let's do the same thing. You see, if that is the case, God bless you. But my God, I don't think that you're thinking very right. Because the world changes. And the other thing, you see, and then you don't need a strategy. Strategy is fundamentally the management of change. So then you start, you see, anchored in the past. Then what else happened? You know what else happened? I'm dominated by my competitors. Can you imagine such a silly thing to do? Why? Because if I'm a leader, I'm going to be driving, looking at the back mirror. And is that the way of doing it? And if I'm the follower, even worse, I'm going to start obsessed by catching a guy that is ahead of me and following, that person's, that organization pattern. That's crazy. And what else? The other thing is that then, if strategy is to achieve competitive advantage over my competitors, you know what I have to do? I have to beat somebody. So strategy is war, right? My way of winning is killing somebody. Strategy is war. Can you imagine another more nonsense like that? Wars do not have victors. Wars are horrible, horrendous, extraordinary, devastating things. I'm going to use war as a way of guiding an organization. It's crazy. And you know what is even worse? You know what happens when you adopt this way of thinking? Invariably, explicitly or implicitly, willingly or not, you begin to imitate each other. And you know what happens? It exists congruence. And you know what congruency means? It's the worst thing that could ever happen to an organization. You get commoditized. What is a commodity? A commodity is mediocrity. A commodity is unable you to establish anything that has any meaning to differentiate you. A commodity is abdicating. A commodity means having no sense of leadership. That's what you want. And you observe that everywhere. You observe that in universities. You observe that in hospitals, like Pedro. You observe us in business all over. And when I started looking at these things, I said something at the beginning, I thought it was a joke, but then realized it was full of wisdom. I said, commodities only exist in the minds of the inept. Why? There are no commodities. You say, come on, Arnoldo, give me a break. First of all, already you have been told, and of course you could detect it from my impeccable British accent, that I'm from Chile. Chile is the world champion in copper. There is no country in the world that gets close to Chile in terms of copper producing capabilities. And I've been consulting to a number of the Chilean mining companies. Copper. Copper is a commodity, right? Are you crazy? Copper, the product, is a commodity. I cannot say that the Chilean copper is any better than Zambia copper or the American copper. But copper, the business, the way Carrier uses copper to make air conditionings, the way Siemens uses copper to make power generation plants, the way GM uses copper to build the car is completely and absolutely different. And if you don't know that, you don't know how to do a business about copper, right? What is so? Because you got to understand the customer. And that's my point. If the essence of strategy is not to obtain competitive advantage, what is it? And to me, the answer is obvious. The essence of strategy is to obtain customer bonding. What does it mean? The driving force of any institution is the customer. That's what you are owned to. That's the essence of what you should become. And to be as effective to provide the customer whatever the customer requires and needs. And if you do not do well enough, somebody else will do it for you. And that's where competition comes about. But it comes about not as a deliberate way of trying to beat somebody. You see, I would say study very, very closely your competitors, not to imitate them, to find the way which is distinctive to you, unique to you, right? And the word bonding, customer bonding. The word bonding is very difficult to translate in another language, at least the ones that I know. You know why? You know why? Because bonding goes beyond closeness, beyond intimacy, beyond linkage. The ultimate expression of bonding is love. And then I turn you around. Can you imagine? Instead of considering management, strategy as war, is managing and strategy as knowing deeply what your customers are, understanding the requirements, provide them with extraordinary, exciting value proposition, and care about them with transparency, with a sense, of ethical behavior that embraces you. You see, and these are the two things. Isn't that amazing? What happened with the internet? The internet allows us to do two things which are paradoxical, two things which are at extremes. First, allows us to do strategy one customer at a time. Isn't that remarkable? And what does it mean? It means that we have to have a customer database that allows us to understand every single individual customer and what are the requirements of each one of them and how we are going to satisfy those requirements in the most effective form for all of them involved. And that's the saying. Look what is happening in the world now. What happened with Amazon. I log in, welcome Mr. Hax. And you know what they do? They start to provide me suggestions to me. Not to a guy like me, to me. How come? Because they know what I have purchased. Therefore, they infer what my taste are. Therefore, they tell me, look, judging from your practice of ownership, this is what we would suppose that you will enjoy. Isn't that marvelous? You go to iTunes, you get a CD, you import into your iPhone. I love tangos. Can you imagine how my idiotic can it be? And I go to Buenos Aires, and buy these unknown, composers and singers, and I plant it in. Maria Volonté, and the son of a gun tell me, I have 5 records of Maria Volonté. You see, that's the trick. And what else? Granularity at the customer and absolute interoperability and interconnectedness with the extended enterprise. Which is the extended enterprise? Is the network. Is where you reside. Because you're not alone. You have suppliers, customers, channels, buyers, consumers, a whole array of things. Imagine, I would have asked you that question. If I were to start doing a strategy for your department, the first thing that I would ask is, what is your network? Because and therefore, who is the customer? The customer is a misleading word. It's not the customer. It's all of the constituents, all of the major players, everybody who affects your business, that you have to recognize, that you have to understand, and that you have to provide, valuable, exciting, durable value propositions to. So here it is, management at the large and management at the small. What happens, say, with Walmart? Walmart is undoubtedly one of the best companies in the planet, the largest corporation in the Western world. How they became what they are? About $500 billion worth of sales. Very few countries in the world has a GDP as large as that. More than 1 million people working for them. How they did it? Well, it's amazing what they did it. They did it one store at a time, right? But you know what they did? They invested billions of dollars in the interconnectedness. And the suppliers of Walmart constitute a formidable chain. connected immediately. They know in real time exactly where products are being sold in every store. And as a result of that, and you know what happened with these guys? They have negative working capital because they paid once the product has been, in the point of sale, has been passed in the cash registration, and the consumer pays, and then you pay the supply. So you see, these two examples trying for you to understand the importance and significance of these two things, the extended enterprise and the customer. Okay, therefore, if bonding is the essence of strategy, how could I provide that to my customer? In other words, how could I attract, how could I satisfy, and how can we retain the customer? And we postulated that there are three macro options: best product, total customer solution, and system lock-in. Let's start with the one in the right-hand side, the best product. What does it mean? Incidentally, that is the thing that you fall into if you don't think. It's what the gravity puts you in. What is it? I'm going to attract, satisfy, and retain the customer based exclusively on the characteristics of my intrinsic characteristics of the product. And that's it. Therefore, it's a very inward-oriented thing, right? It's my value chain. It's my cost infrastructure. It's my ability, Yeah, I'm working with a sales force that goes to a purchasing guy, and establishes a transaction through a standardized product. What is a transaction? Transaction is an activity where I give you a product and you give me money and thank you very much. The degree of bonding that exists at this level is minimum, almost non-existing. Why? Because it's just based upon the product. There is no other involvement. And if somebody comes with a better product, the customer will and should leave you. What are the different ways of obtaining that? You see, and then it comes my dear friend Michael Porter. Michael is perhaps the most influential academic in my generation in management. He's an outstanding contributor, right? And we could talk a lot about that. But Michael said something which I was very surprised, without having any proof about that. He said, it is self-evident. And by being self-evident, that's it, right? Let's not discuss it. That there are only two ways to compete, and those are low cost or differentiation. But what he's saying is, the low cost is the result. I'm losing the. No? Can you hear me or not? Yeah. Thank you. Can you hear me now? Is up? More or less? Well, it's coming. So low cost and differentiation, right? You see, if this is the case, if these are the only two options, I have very bad news to tell you. Why? Low cost. How many players can there be who are the lowest cost producers in a given industry? Just one. And being one means that there is no place, no space. And this is one of the most contested, therefore brutal ways to compete. Because and that leads exactly to all of the things that I was telling you, toward this super standardization of a product which is being commoditized, where the customer doesn't exist, it's faceless, right? And incidentally, I have put in here examples of companies which have excelled, which are in each one of these positions, just to show you that even in the low-cost category, which is, in my view, perhaps the least attractive of all of the competitive positions you could fall into, right? They are very good companies. We were talking about, that patient that is willing to change the doctor because it has $100 less or so in, what's the name of the, in cocoa. That is a customer, is what we call a price seeker. That's not a very exciting guy. But he's not a very exciting guy only if he's wrong. Suppose he's right. Suppose you see that in fact what you are offering is no better or worse than what the other guy is offering. Therefore, he's right. If you are living in a commoditized environment, then the lowest prices should win. But if there is something extra that you're providing, you got to demonstrate to the customer that there are benefits incurred by accepting you as the supplier. And so what he says then, and you look at this, Southwest, God, these guys, while the whole industry, commercial air aviation, is with very few exceptions, performing horribly. The primary airlines in America, my God, it's a shame. American Airlines, United, all of these horrible companies, losing money like anything. These guys haven't missed a bit for 30-something years. Decided to do something very different. Only operate pairwise cities. They don't do anything for you. Nothing. They don't use travel agents. They don't give you food. They don't give you seats. Then they don't check your luggage to anywhere. That's your baby. They just go from A to B in non-congested airports. And as a result of that, they have a cost advantage brutal, which they use and they position that way. If you cannot play the low cost, the idea is differentiate. Differentiating what? You see, now we're differentiating in product here only. So you have to provide to your products something which is exciting. It might be functionality. It might be properties that the product has, which are superior to the competitors. It must be even a brand. What is a brand? Very often a brand is an illusion. I'm going to sell you Hellman's mayonnaise. My friends at Unilever. Hellman mayonnaise. Well, you can buy a mayonnaise 20% lower than that, and I bet you that no one will distinguish the taste. But why do you buy Hellman mayonnaise? My God, because you give this mayonnaise to your children, and your children are so lovable. They defer that you are irrational. But what other bad news I have to give you is that if you differentiate the product and you don't patent it, and very seldomly could you patent your product, that means that when the product emerges in the surface and the competitors see it, they will imitate it. And so whatever advantage you have will be short-lived. You see, and I'm using the word competition here repeatedly, because in here, that's down. This is the corner where strategy is competitive advantage. That fundamentally, what is the best product? The best product is that who is superior to the competition. So this, you see, is the corner where the whole conventional wisdom of strategy resides. Is it exciting? Well, you see, let me tell you, I am not saying for a second that having an extraordinarily effective cost infrastructure is not necessary. I am not saying for a second that having a stream of creative products of high quality is not necessary. Absolutely. These are foundations, but don't stop there. Because if you stop here, you are going to negate yourself of really becoming an extraordinary company. There are very few great companies in that corner. Very few admired companies in that corner. Because there isn't much. They are in the process of standardization. There is these things that we call a transaction. What can you do different? Well, You can go, you see, and now, da-da-da-da, you move to the left. That is not a political statement. The transformation that goes from best product to total customer solution, I think, is a very positive thing. Now you begin to understand deeply your customer. Now there are no standardized things. Through common learning, you can put together something that is absolutely unique and differentiated. You go, you no longer are providing, standardized products. You are providing a harmonized portfolio of products and services that allows to resolve fundamental solutions to your customers. Right? Instead of a transaction, you have a relationship, an enduring, long-lasting relationship that could culminate with a very strong bonding on the part of both players, both the customers and the companies that we are exercising. What are the ways of doing this? You see, you have to do three things simultaneously. You have to rethink how you engage the customer. Another of these slogans, some stupid slogans that I begin to coin is, sales are too important to be left to the salesman. And that is true, A very good salesperson will understand that sometimes you don't sell just going with the standardized product. I mean, to visit to your purchaser in your briefcase. You got to have a team approach. In order to understand, what are the needs of the customer, you have to have a multifunctional team, R&D, finance, marketing, the top executives, in conversation with one another, to seal off, the kind of work that needs to be developed in order to provide this total customer solution. So you redefine the customer engagement process, understand the customer effectively, segment the customer. Don't ever treat every customer the same. Prioritize the customers. I will show you how to do it later on. And provide value proposition, unique, differentiated, extremely exciting value proposition to each of those players. Then you move, I said, this thing of customer integration. What does it mean? I am not an engine that develops and makes products. I'm an engine of knowledge, of understanding. I possess capacities and capabilities that my customers don't have. And the possibility for me to carry on and pass on those things to the customer is what makes my contribution unique. It's not just a standardized product. And that is the integration part, EDS. I put two names in there, Saturn, EDS, and then Fidelity. Saturn, the first president of Saturn was a former student of mine. Yeah, you cannot imagine, after being 40 years at MIT, the students that I have. And the remarkable, engagement that you get when you are a professor. I mean, it's the most lovely profession, I think, there is. And this guy called me and he said, Skip the professor, Arnoldo, help me in putting together. It was 1989, a long while ago, where General Motors finally decided to enter into the small car industry, knowing one thing perfectly well, how not to do it. Sometimes knowing how not to do it is a very important asset. And I can bore you to death, telling you how it was to putting the customer at the center. In an industry, where it was absurd. Buying a car in America has been a very unpleasant experience. This arguing that never existed before. Why that? Well, we wanted to correct all of that. The customer integration, EDS, Electronic Data System, the company that was founded by Ross Perot, they started IT outsourcing. You would go to a bank and say, look, we can provide you with all of the IT services in a much more effective way and cheaper than you do. You will never attract the top IT people because you're a bank or because you are a producer of whatever. we can do it for you. And that was the genius of Perón. And then finally, you see, is the horizontal breadth. How much it is, that I can provide to you. Can I satisfy every conceivable need, that the customer has in the sector in which we are? You see, and now I can begin to ask you questions. Suppose that I ask you, how good are you at managing your department? How good are you at creating a very effective cost infrastructure? I don't need to tell you the tragedy that exists in the health industry in America, right? When costs are beyond imagination, when nobody pays, nobody understands what it is. Nobody has a clue of what is going to happen, Nobody has a sense of the Obamacare, I still have to find somebody that tells me, with, in a very deep way, what is it? Is it excessive? Is it right? Is it a crime? Is the most extraordinary thing ever? What are the... So, do you have a differentiated thing? If I'm going to have to come up with your services, are you giving me something which I could never encounter ever in every place? Right? How are you going to treat me? Right? How much you care about me? How much you know about me? How much are you going? Are you commoditizing me? Right? What happened with? What is the knowledge that you are bringing about? What is the knowledge that you're receiving from other parts? What is the full array? You see the idea? I can begin to get a sense of the competence that you have and how these competencies exist in order to make you. And then it comes to top, the dominant exchange, the system locking. Those are the dominant companies. The companies that have 70% above market share. How could you get, in here, in best product, you have zero boundary. You move to that customer solution, and if you do things well, you get a custom lock-in. I would never go to any place other than Mass General. Why? Because I have my dear friend Mark. Because, I have been operated more times than I want to count. and I have the greatest respect and admiration for your place, right? So you get a custom lock-in with me. What happened upstairs? Is not only you have individualized customers lock-in, you have competitor lockout. In your department, nobody mess around with you because you have such a quality, that you really own, the vast majority of all of the activities that you want. What are ways of achieving them? You see, let's start with the simplest one, which is the hardest one, to obtain, which is defining the standard of the industry and appropriate them. A super example of that, Microsoft and Intel. Why is Bill Gates one of the richest guys in the world? Never has had a good product. In fact, the product is so bad that it's laughable. I invited Michael Dell to my home, to my class, and he said, have you ever considered a product so poorly developed that when you have to leave, you have to click start? And we are so brainwashed that we don't even realize, they are pulling our leg every time we use a stupid computer. And it goes down and up. Is it because he loves you? And he's so responsive to your needs? None of that. Why does he have, 95% market share? That's not began. You know why? Because he has 80% market share of the complementers. What that complementers mean? An army of people working for him, not in his payroll. developing products, softwares, hardwares compatible with the system. Why do they want to work with the Windows stuff? Because obviously it's the system with the most installed, pieces in the market. And therefore, people want to develop software for the system with just the more installed units, and people want to buy the products that has the largest number of applications. And that's it, baby. The most incredible thing? You would say, in health, this is impossible, right? To develop a standard for health and appropriate it. You know who did that? Synthes did it. Synthes is an incredible, unbelievable company. They develop proprietary standards. They develop the standards of traumatology. They communicate those standards widely through the AO Foundation. And they appropriated them. And they had an army of people working for them, not in the paper. All of the surgeons going to Davos, feeling enormously honored by being AO faculty. Can you imagine? It's almost like kidding you. Not paying you a penny, right? Working for a company that had an enormous wealth. That is smart. My friend Biz is a genius. Dominant exchange. What is this dominant exchange about? Establish a system that you own, and it's fundamental for your customer to relate to the environment. You know who did it in your discipline? American Hospital Supply. It almost broke J&J. J&J is the most decentralized company on the planet. They are a family of 250 companies or so. Each one of them fiercely independent and autonomous. Focus entirely, most of the time, in one single product, in one market, globally. So they have about 11 companies that will go to an hospital. American Hospital Supply was a generic drug distributor. Can you imagine? How much lower than that would you be in life? You know what they did? They went to an hospital and said, look, we will develop, install, and operate an order entry system for you. That will mean, that we are going to process your orders, we are going to manage your inventories, we're going to tell you how to replenish them, how to take care of promotions and so forth. Now, how could you resist such a fantastic gift? But once you have that system, you own the customer. That's what Cisnet will do with an inventory system that they have, in every hospital, where they know exactly what was the state of the inventory of the instruments and implants, right? So, and there is, you see, the greatest glory of our times. What is Google? What is Apple? What is Facebook? What are these enormously? What is Amazon? They are just fantastic, dominant exchanges. Right? That's what it is. With a sense of uniqueness, of granularity. Right? What is eBay? In the old-fashioned thing, what is a yellow page? That's it. It's exchanges. Capability, communication systems that links you. And then it comes the exclusivity channel, where I'm the only one that provides this thing. That was the magic of Sam Walton. This son of a gun came from Bentonville, Arkansas. Arkansas is the 49th state of the country in terms of poverty. One of the most humble, neglected states in the Union. Started there. Huh? Nobody knew what Bentonville, Arkansas was. Today, if you are retailing, you go like the Muslim goes to Mecca, you go to Bentonville. Right? How did they do it? One story at a time. They target rural America. Cities with less than 25,000 people, where there were no department stores. Bang! And they installed it there. forget it. That became, an instantaneous system locking. So here it is, right? My five tasks. If we were to do strategy, I think that this reflects what is the essence of what we do. First and foremost, we start with the customer. Who is the customer? Who is not only the customer, who are all of the major players? What is your network? And then, how are you going to give to each segment, each one of these groups of customers, prioritize them, and give at least to the top priority items there the highest, best value proposition you can. Then this is the demand side. The supply side is it. Who are you? What competence do you have? What distinguishes you now and in the future? What makes you great? What is your claim of excellence? Don't give me, strengths and weaknesses. I'm gonna guide you to analyze you through dimensions of relevance in strategy. Understanding who you are now, what you need to add, and what is the challenge that exists between what you possess and to become the company that you would like to deliver, put together the mission, where I'm going to go and merge these two things and describe what you are, what you want to become, and what is the challenge of this gap. And then the strategic agenda with full accountability, with every individual with monitoring capacity, with an information system behind, to allow us, to record what is our pragmatic action programs that we are going to set up in place, and finally, how we're going to monitor the execution. That's what, it's a very quick, the nice thing about the Delta model, if I might say, is that it has a very good set of tools, which obviously I haven't given it to you because of the time limitations. So it's not just the conceptual stuff that I've been telling you, that you could say, my God, this guy is talking about abstractions. No, I could tell you how to do these things in a being of it. And that's what I would like, see, I still have some minutes, right? I would like to give you some reflections on how do I think that these ideas could be applied to research university. I have to tell you a secret. I have done one seriously in-depth, one application of this thing in my life to a network of health hospitals, and a university hospital. And I did it with the Catholic University in Chile. The Catholic University is the best university in the country, and the medical school is the best in the country. But compared to you guys, they are just clowns, I presume, right? Yeah. But you see, look, first question, who are your customers? What is it? They are all the external and internal participants in your system, the stakeholders. Right? To have, you have to segment them and give them exciting value propositions that generate value. This is my answer. Who are your customers? You could probably do a very different list. But there are the academics working with you, there are your students, the administrators, the patients, the suppliers of patients. How do you get patients? The suppliers of services, and all of the institutions that are part, of what you produce, whether they could bring you grants or whether you have to be responsive to their requirements and their needs. Let me try to work the first four. Remember what I said. What you have to do first is to segment them, give them a sense of priorities, and give a value proposition. See? I'm sorry about that, John. Okay. How do I segment the academics? And you see, and I start with the top. The top of the triangle is the highest priority, and I will look down, and when into the right corner is the lowest priority. And first I have the big cheese, the opinion leader. I was working with Synthesis, and they were telling me that there are 200 opinion leaders in each region. 200 in America, 200 in Europe, 200 in Asia, 200 in Latin America. And they knew every single one by memory. They knew the names of their spouses, the children, whatever it is. Researchers. You see, researchers, one notch ahead of clinical teachers. In the sense that this, you see, is a research university hospital, and we assign higher priority to that. Young doctors, students with high potential could become academics, nurses, and lifelong learning. I'm sure that if we were to do it with you, we would come up with a different list, most likely with different priorities. But you see, the question behind that is, look, incidentally, there is a life cycle in here. How you start? Well, you start, in fact, with the students. You start with the residents and the fellows and so forth. But there is how do you embrace the life cycle? And how do you provide? Can you tell me what it makes, a Mass General absolutely distinctive? A valuable position has 4 attributes. It has to be unique. This uniqueness has to be durable, sustainable in time. It has to add value, and it has to generate bonding. And you know what bonding means in this thing? Do you have a net flow of talent? What the net flow of talent means? You want to attract the very best, right? The sharpest graduates from the top universities. Do they come? And then, the other side, are you losing people that hurts deep to lose? If you have a negative flow of talent, you are in deep macaroni. Right? Because no matter what you feed, you are in trouble. You are in deep trouble. I think it's the greatest strategic indicator that I can produce. I don't look at financial statements and so on. I look at the net flow of talent. Why? Because talent is all what you are. Nothing more and nothing less. Right? If you don't have top level quality, you are nowhere. So we will go. What do we do for research? Are we being, we can talk so much about that. We can have a long discussion about each and every single one of these things. Look at the students. The greatest guys are the fellows. Why? Because you know now that these guys are going to be in a very, very strong position in their lifestyle. The chief residents, like our friends in here, you see, these 2 guys probably are more important than all of the rest of you. Because they are the future, right? They are the life. They are where you can bet to get into, you got to get the renewal. You pay me later the commission that we talk about that. The residents, right? The medical students, the pre-med. How do you do? We've done that at MIT, right? The MBA has been commoditized. How could we break it? Gee, I can talk to you a long time about it. The patients. That's the way in which the Catholic University classifies the patient. Ambulatory greatly ill, poor guys are like me now. Ambulatory chronically ill, emergency, hospitalized with high complexity, hospitalized with low complexity, diagnosed children, and the healthy guys. What do you do for the patients? How is it? Right? And then the administrative directors, professional managers, other health professionals, support staff, and provisional staff. You see what I'm trying to say? Understand every single one of your players. Provide priorities, establish the value proposition for them. And then I have, and here the capabilities, I can walk you through this. I didn't want to put the customer first because it's so different, right? But I walked you through it and asked, and I walked you through this twice, existing and desire. And say, do you have a administrative business? Do you have the organization? Do you have the best way of attracting customers? Do you have the capacity of transferring knowledge, creating knowledge? Do you have the rest of offering? Do you have great channel delivery? Do you have systems? Do you have the ultimate, a powerful intellectual value that is only yours? And at the end, you know, I have these stupid sayings. I took all the time, huh? Maybe I shouldn't, huh? But I'm in trouble. Let me just very quickly say to you, huh? You know that the greatest mathematician of all time was Euclid. Why was Euclid? Because he developed geometry. During 2,000 years, the son of a gun presided over that. And he created a thing called the axioms. There are 5 axioms. And with that 5 axioms, he developed all the field of geometry. He wrote a series of books called The Elements. I said, and I said, if you believe my axioms, I prove all the rest. And I decided to mimic them. And I created the axiom with an H. my last name is Hax, in case you forgot. And this is it, you see. The central strategy is the customer. You don't win by beating the competition. You win by achieving customer bonding. Strategy isn't that corny, huh? Strategy is what is love, and I think that is true. Product-centered mentality is training. Try to understand your customer deeply. Commodities only exist in the minds of the inept. The foundation strategy are customer segmentation, about competence. Reject this truism, the customer is always right, and we know the customers. The strategic process is a dialogue, seeking consensus, and metrics at the same time. I'm sorry that I took all the time, huh?